This is a story about the genuine connection and love that blossomed between a young man from Ghana, who came to the United States as an exchange student, and an American grandmother in her 70s. Please subscribe and like our channel. It really helps us out. In 2005, the tail end of summer in Boston, Massachusetts, was, as usual, filled with lingering humidity and the bustling footsteps of people around the Cambridge area, a hub for several universities, language institutes, and various study abroad programs. The unfamiliar voices of young people from overseas swirled in the air. Diverse foreign languages could be heard on the streets, and many of these young people were often seen unfolding maps near Harvard Square or peering into their smartphones, trying to find their destinations. Our story begins with one young man among this crowd, whose English, while functional, still carried the hesitations of a newcomer navigating a different culture. His name was Kwasi. He was a man in his 20s from Ghana. From the moment he landed at Logan Airport, he felt bewildered in many ways. Although signs were in English, the slang, rapid pace of speech, and cultural nuances were a lot to take in. Still, he held a vague expectation of America as a land of opportunity and believed he could overcome some challenges with his passion and positive attitude. The real problem was finding a place to live. Applications for university dormitories had long since closed, and the system of security deposits, credit checks, and monthly rent felt overwhelmingly complicated for him to navigate alone. It took great courage just to browse online listings and contact landlords with his slightly accented English. For about a week, he wandered around, looking at several cramped, shared apartments or tiny rooms in older buildings. The shabby rooms were so small that a desk and a bed barely fit, and some had windows looking out onto brick walls. Moreover, the burden of having to prepare all his own meals in unfamiliar grocery stores was daunting. Exhausted from the long flight and the overwhelming new environment, Kwasi began to feel more drained each day. The thought, even though America is a developed country, finding affordable housing is so complicated, wouldn't leave his mind. Then, he received a valuable piece of information from another Ghanaian student. There's a unique boarding house a little way from here, in a quieter part of Cambridge. The owner is an American grandmother who's very kind and has been renting rooms to international students for years. The moment he heard it, he was intrigued. He even got her contact information through an online student forum. It was informally known as Mama Rose's Place, though he wasn't sure if that was its official name. Anyway, feeling like he was clutching at straws, Kwasi immediately tried to contact her. His destination was a slightly old-looking, charming two-story Victorian house on a tree-lined street. A short bus ride from the main university area. A small, hand-painted sign by the porch simply read, "Rooms for rent. Inquire within." There was no mention of Mama Rose anywhere. Wondering if he'd come to the wrong place, he rang the doorbell. After a moment, a grandmotherly woman appeared. She looked to be in her early 70s, with her silver hair neatly coiffed and kind eyes. Most notably, upon seeing Kwasi, she immediately broke into a warm, welcoming smile. "Oh, hello, you must be Kwasi," the grandmother said in clear, gentle English. Kwasi was so relieved he momentarily sagged. But then, as a smile spread across his own face, he managed to reply, "Yes, Mom, Kwasi, it's very nice to meet you." The grandmother, who introduced herself as Rose, nodded and ushered him inside. The house had a cozy, lived-in atmosphere. The wooden floors creaked comfortably, and in one corner of the living room sat an old television and a plush, slightly worn armchair. The walls were adorned with framed photos, some old paintings, and a colorful quilt. The bookshelves were packed with novels, history books, and a surprising number of travel guides. "I've always loved meeting people from different places. It seems word has gotten around the student community," Rose said with a soft chuckle. Soon, she showed him a small, bright room upstairs. It was neat and tidy, with a simple bed, a sturdy desk, a closet, and a relatively large window overlooking the backyard garden. Such a clean, peaceful room was a pleasant surprise. He naturally felt drawn to it. "How much would it be?" Kwasi asked cautiously. His purpose in coming to the US was to participate in an exchange program at Harvard, and being on a tight budget. The cost was a concern. Rose laid out a few conditions. The monthly rent was fixed and included a simple breakfast and a home-cooked dinner on weeknights. Cleaning his room and personal laundry were his responsibility, though she had a washer and dryer he could use. The price was much more reasonable than he expected and significantly better than other options he'd seen. Kwasi agreed to the contract without hesitation. "Thank you so much," he said, his gratitude genuine. Rose smiled and showed him around the house, the kitchen, the shared bathroom, kept immaculately clean, and the dining room that opened into the living area. Several students of various nationalities were already spending time there. Some were from Germany, others from Brazil, and another from Japan. They all greeted Kwasi warmly. His first impression of Mama Rose's place was, this must be a place where many different stories are shared. It was amazing that so many foreign students were living together in one house in unfamiliar America. Helping each other, they exchanged cultural tidbits, sometimes watched movies together, and shared tips about classes and navigating Boston. To Kwasi's eyes, this place felt like a small but vast world. For the first few days, he was clumsy adjusting to life in the boarding house. Meals usually consisted of American comfort food, things like pasta, chicken and vegetables, or hearty soups, prepared by Rose. It was his first real immersion in American home cooking. And while Ghanaian food also has strong spices, some American seasonings and dishes were new to him. Rose, with her observant nature, quickly noticed if something wasn't to his taste. She'd kindly offer him a simpler alternative or ask, "What kind of food do you enjoy back home, Kwasi?" and try to incorporate flavors he might find more familiar. Telling him to adjust slowly. Dinner offered a wider variety. Kwasi tasted Rose's famous meatloaf and her New England clam chowder for the first time and was amazed by the comforting flavors. The foreign friends eating with him would chatter away, saying things like, "This is delicious," or, "I've never tried this before." Those mealtimes were a unique cacophony of English spoken with various accents, mixed with snippets of French, German, Portuguese, and other languages. Rose would look on with a proud, fond expression, occasionally exclaiming, "Everyone, dig in, plenty more where that came from," with satisfaction. During the day, he attended classes at the university or studied in the Widener Library. Kwasi was also taking an intensive English workshop to polish his academic writing. But in the beginning, American slang and rapid-fire colloquialisms were often a challenge. He could read and write English well, but understanding fast-paced conversations or cultural references was sometimes difficult. Whenever that happened, he would return to the boarding house and ask Rose, and she would explain things patiently. "Oh, when Americans say that, they usually mean this, and you'd phrase it this way to sound more natural." Her explanations were much more practical than any textbook. Sometimes, Rose would even help him decipher confusing university paperwork or give him tips on dealing with the Student Services Office. Administrative processes, cumbersome even for Americans, were even more complicated for international students. "Is it really okay for you to help me with this?" Kwasi would ask, feeling he was imposing. Rose would reply, "Oh, honey, it's no trouble at all. I've been around the block a few times. I feel at ease when you young folks are settled and comfortable." Her words put Kwasi at ease and deeply moved him at the same time. There was never a dull moment at the boarding house, with incidents and everyday dramas always popping up. One day, a female student from Spain came down with a terrible flu, and they had to call for a medical consultation, as she didn't have a local doctor yet. Rose calmly helped her get an appointment and made sure she had soup and medication. The student, disoriented and struggling with some of the medical terms, was able to get the care she needed thanks to Rose's steady presence. On another day, a male student from Germany had his wallet stolen on the subway and was in a panic. His limited knowledge of local procedures made it difficult to file a police report and cancel his cards. Rose stepped in then too. "All right, dear, no use crying over spilled milk. "Let's get this sorted," she said, driving him to the nearest police precinct. There, she helped him explain the situation clearly and later assisted him in contacting his bank and the consulate. After that incident, the male student returned to the boarding house, gave Rose a big hug, and tearfully thanked her over and over again. As such episodes accumulated, Rose came to be known not just as the landlady, but affectionately as Mama Rose by all the students. Among the international student community, the saying, "If you're in trouble, go see Mama Rose," spread naturally. Her love and care transcended language barriers and differences in nationality. Rose herself secretly cherished this nickname. "Oh goodness, I don't do anything so special. I just like having a house full of life," she would say modestly, but all the students genuinely respected and adored her. The impromptu gatherings or cultural exchanges that took place in the living room after dinner were a specialty of Mama Rose's place. If a German student brought back some local craft beers, a French student might share some cheese they'd found. Students interested in American traditions might ask Rose about Thanksgiving or the 4th of July. Then, Rose would sometimes improvise, saying, "Well, since you asked, how about I whip up a batch of my famous brownies?" The foreign students, amazed by the simple, heartfelt hospitality, would exclaim, "This is the best brownie I've ever had." In this warm atmosphere, Kwasi also interacted with various friends and broadened his perspective. Then one day, Kwasi received tragic news from his family in Ghana. His paternal grandmother, who had raised him since he was young, had passed away. The news, delivered in a single, crackly phone call, felt like a thunderbolt, and Kwasi's mind went blank. He wanted to rush to Ghana immediately, but the plane ticket was prohibitively expensive, and he had already paid his tuition and fees for the semester. Moreover, he had midterms and major papers due. It was a situation he couldn't easily abandon. Kwasi either holed up in his room crying or just sat there numbly. His father and mother called, saying, "We understand your situation, son, so it's okay if you can't make it here. Your thoughts are with us." But he couldn't shake off the guilt and sorrow. One night, after several sleepless nights, Mama Rose sensed something was deeply wrong and gently knocked on Kwasi's door. "Kwasi, honey, you don't seem yourself. Is something wrong?" her warm, concerned voice asked. After a long hesitation, Kwasi, his voice choked with tears, confessed, "My grandmother in Ghana. She passed away." He tried to maintain his composure, but his emotions overwhelmed him. Seeing him like this, Mama Rose looked at him silently for a long moment with immense compassion. Then took Kwasi's hand and led him downstairs to her cozy little den. They sat together on her old, comfortable sofa. "Go on, sweetheart. It's okay to cry," she said, patting Kwasi's back gently. Only then did Kwasi let out ragged breaths and burst into tears. "I'm so sorry. She raised me. And I'm just here, studying." Jumbled words tumbled out. Mama Rose listened without saying anything, then gently draped a soft Afghan over him. Then, she began to hum a familiar, soothing melody, a gentle American folk tune. He didn't know the words, if there even were any to her humming, but it felt strangely warm and comforting. And unexpectedly, amidst the tears, a small, watery chuckle escaped him. As tears and laughter mingled, he felt a deep part of his heart slowly unwinding. That night, Kwasi cried himself to sleep on Mama Rose's sofa. Exhausted, even in his sleep, he felt her gently stroking his hair. The loneliness, loss, and sorrow he felt in a foreign land all rushed in at once. But in that moment, in Mama Rose's presence, he found a brief sense of peace. After this incident, Kwasi truly felt that Mama Rose's place was like a home with real family. From that day on, whenever Kwasi had a hard time, he would often seek out Mama Rose. She always welcomed him warmly. "Oh, Kwasi, there you are. Have you eaten? Can I get you a cup of tea?" she'd ask, sometimes bringing him a warm cookie or a piece of fruit from the kitchen. Sometimes, they would sit in the kitchen or the den and talk about various things. Kwasi shared all sorts of memories, his childhood in Ghana, farming with the grandmother who raised him, Funny episodes from school. Mama Rose didn't just listen. She also shared stories of her own childhood in America. How different things were growing up. Her travels when she was younger. And her experiences meeting people from all walks of life. Sometimes she would grumble good-naturedly. Young people these days with their gadgets. But she always ended with encouragement. But you all are truly remarkable. Coming all this way from so far to study and make something of yourselves. As these moments accumulated, their relationship transcended that of a landlady and a tenant. When he was exhausted from working on assignments until dawn, he would sometimes find Mama Rose already up, making coffee. Grandma Rose. He'd started calling her by then. Can I just sit here with you for a bit before my brain gives out? If Rose, already sipping her tea, smiled and said, pull up a chair, sleepyhead, Kwasi would grin and join her. Those quiet pre-dawn moments, sharing thoughts about the world, opinions on current events, and personal worries, were incredibly precious to Kwasi. There were other international students in the boarding house. Some of them looked at this with friendly curiosity. Kwasi, you and Mama Rose seem to talk a lot. What do you guys discuss? They'd ask. Kwasi would smile and say, oh, you know, just life. She's a good listener. In truth, just being in her comforting presence, without any particular topic, was a solace in itself. Mama Rose's consistently open heart to those who had lost something or were struggling in a foreign land allowed him to feel human and cared for. As time passed, Kwasi gradually adapted to life in the US. His English became much more fluent and colloquial, and he managed his assignments and exams without difficulty. He made American friends and even started an African Students Association on campus. There were various international student gatherings at Harvard, and Kwasi actively participated, even giving presentations to introduce his country and culture. He still enjoyed his conversations with Mama Rose. Sometimes, Rose would pull out old National Geographic magazines and ask Kwasi about places in Africa, and Kwasi, in turn, would ask her about American history or literature she recommended. This mutual learning and sharing was the very culture of Mama Rose's place. Everyone looked after each other like an unconventional family, sharing their languages and cultures, and relying on one another. These experiences helped Kwasi grow. He developed the goal of studying American public administration and development strategies to find ideas applicable to Ghana. Like other African countries, Ghana still faced economic and political challenges, and Kwasi wanted to be part of the solution. To him, full of such passion, Mama Rose always added, Kwasi, you dream big, and that's wonderful, but always take care of yourself too. I hope I can be a small source of encouragement on your path to achieving that dream. As the semester ended, the exchange student program was coming to a close. Kwasi naturally began to prepare for his return home. As farewells drew near, a sense of wistfulness filled the boarding house. Students from Spain, Germany, Brazil, Japan, and other places were also due to return home when their programs ended. Conversations like, "Thank you all for everything. I'll definitely keep in touch. When can we all meet again?" filled the air as they exchanged email addresses and social media contacts. Kwasi's farewell to Mama Rose also approached. That morning, when Kwasi, ready to leave, came downstairs to say his final goodbye, Rose was waiting with her usual calm, kind eyes. "Ah, Kwasi, you've worked so hard and done so well. Go back and continue to make us proud. And if you ever come back to Boston, you know where to find me. Your room, or at least a spot on the sofa, will always be here for you." Kwasi was choked up and couldn't say much. He just hugged her tightly, repeating, "Thank you, Mama Rose. I will never forget you. I will definitely come back." Seeing this, the other students' eyes also welled up. After returning home, Kwasi's life became busy. He graduated from university in his home country of Ghana and, after entering the public service, often became involved in diplomatic projects or trade affairs with the United States. Because of this, whenever he had the chance to visit the US again, particularly the East Coast, he would invariably make a trip to Cambridge to see Mama Rose. She was still spry, though a little slower, and greeted students with the same overflowing warmth as before. Seeing her always brought him a sense of relief and joy. Our Mama Rose is still going strong. Then, as time passed, Kwasi was admitted to a prestigious graduate program in public policy at a university in Washington, D.C., with the support of the Ghanaian government. The joy of being back in the US also meant he could visit Mama Rose more easily. This time, as a formal master's program student, he would be in the US for a longer period. Whenever he could get away, he'd take the bus or train up to Boston. He always stayed at Mama Rose's, his old room, if available, or another just like it. "See, I told you there'd always be a place for you here," Mama Rose would say with her usual voice and smile. While pursuing his master's degree, he conducted more in-depth research. He also had an internship opportunity at an international NGO and participated in US Ghana development projects. When he was getting a little tired from his busy life, it was, as always, Mama Rose's kitchen that felt like a sanctuary during his visits. On evenings he arrived late. Finding a warm slice of apple pie or a cup of herbal tea waiting for him was the most comforting thing. "You look tired, dear. Sit down, rest a bit." Mama Rose's words would wash away the journey's fatigue. Around that time, Kwasi sometimes suffered from stress headaches and insomnia. During one visit, Mama Rose, noticing his weariness, would say, "Come sit by the fire, dear, let me make you some chamomile tea," and hum her gentle tunes. Her calm presence and the warmth of her home were deeply soothing. Perhaps this place was not just a simple boarding house, but a sanctuary that healed even the ailments of the heart. Other students felt the same. Sometimes, a student from Europe would confess, "I'm so homesick, Mama Rose." She would pat their shoulder, offering a sympathetic ear and perhaps a fresh-baked cookie. Behind this attitude, Mama Rose had her own philosophy. "You know, honey, we're all just passing through this life. We should help each other when we can. And honestly, I love having you all here. Seeing young people from so many different countries, full of dreams, it keeps an old gal like me feeling young." Her words always filled the students with gratitude and respect. Thus, the nickname, Mama Rose, became even more established over time. And even after students returned to their home countries, they didn't forget her, often sending postcards, emails, or Christmas cards. Time flew by like an arrow. 20 years later, in 2025, Kwasi was in his 40s. In the intervening years, he had traveled to various countries, building his career in diplomatic and public service, eventually taking up an important position at the Ghanaian embassy in Washington, D.C. He had visited Mama Rose whenever he could, but not as frequently as in his student days. Nevertheless, they occasionally exchanged calls or emails, sharing news. When he told her, "I'm working at the embassy now, Mama Rose," she rejoiced. "Oh, Kwasi, that's truly wonderful. I knew you did great things." However, at some point, he started hearing from her son, who lived nearby, that Mama Rose was frequently in and out of the hospital due to health problems. She was now nearing 90, and her age was catching up with her. The operation of the boarding house had mostly been taken over by her son, who, though busy with his own family, tried to keep it going in the spirit his mother had established, often checking in on the students. Still, Mama Rose, when she was home, would insist, "Even if I can't do much, this house should always be a welcoming place for these young people." The problems gradually worsened. Due to various complications, Mama Rose had to spend long periods in the hospital or a rehabilitation facility. Then one day, Kwasi received news from her son that Mama Rose was critically ill. Working at the Ghanaian embassy in D.C., he cleared his schedule, took leave, and drove straight to Boston. The desire to repay the kindness and strong bond he had formed when he first arrived in America, that debt of the heart, took precedence over everything else. In the hospital room, Mama Rose looked frail, a shadow of her former self. Her eyes were mostly closed, and her voice was a mere whisper. "Mama Rose, it's me, Kwasi. You remember me, right?" he called out softly. She struggled to open her eyes. a faint smile touching her lips as she nodded slightly. My Kwasi. You came. So good to see you, dear. Her voice was weak but so welcoming. At the same time, overwhelming sadness washed over him. It was unbelievable that this once vibrant and kind woman was now barely able to move. That night, just as she had offered him comfort 20 years ago, Kwasi stayed by Mama Rose's side, sitting in a chair pulled close to her hospital bed, sometimes holding her hand. Mama Rose briefly woke up and said in a low voice, "We had some good talks in that old house, didn't we? I still remember. When you were so sad about your grandmother in Ghana." Kwasi couldn't hold back his tears. "Mama Rose, you remember? That meant the world to me." She, mustering her strength, squeezed his hand faintly. "You were always such a good boy." Kwasi, "No, a fine man now. I was so happy to know you. I'm glad I lived long enough to see you do so well." He could only answer with silent tears. Words failed him. Their conversation was brief, but the feelings they wanted to convey to each other were fully communicated. Eventually, Mama Rose's time was running out. A few weeks later, her son informed the close circle that her passing was imminent. Simultaneously, the news spread quickly among the network of former international students who had passed through Mama Rose's place. Former boarders who were still in the US or could travel easily began to make their way to Boston. One by one, "Mama Rose is very ill. Our Mama Rose." For many, these words were as shocking as hearing that a member of their own family was ill. The hospital visiting hours saw a surprising number of diverse visitors. Some drove from neighboring states. Others flew in from further afield if they could. Of course, not everyone could come, but messages of love, condolence, and concern poured in via email and social media groups dedicated to alumni of Mama Rose's. Watching them come and go, or reading the messages, Kwasi once again realized how many lives Mama Rose had touched. She was truly an amazing person, Kwasi murmured, gently holding her hand. Finally, Mama Rose quietly passed away. The nurse reported that some of her last coherent words were, "Tell the kids, be good to each other." On the day of her memorial service, held at a local community church she sometimes attended, an astonishingly diverse group of people gathered. Not only her American family, friends, and neighbors but also people of all colors and backgrounds stood together, sharing tears and memories. Their native languages were different, but their sorrow and gratitude were shared. The church was filled with a quiet, respectful sadness. Kwasi stood to say a few words, dressed in a somber suit. A lovely photo of Mama Rose, taken a few years prior, smiling warmly, was displayed. Many former students looked at the photo, wiping away tears, saying, "I remember that smile. I remember the kindness she showed me." Meanwhile, some of Mama Rose's distant relatives or older acquaintances were surprised. "My goodness, Rose knew so many people from all over the world," they'd whisper, whenever they asked. Her son, Kwasi, or other former boarders would answer, "She was a true mama to us all. She was everyone's American grandmother." The reception after the service was a testament to her impact. Like a mini United Nations gathering, former students or boarders from France, Germany, Spain, Brazil, China, Japan, Ghana, Nigeria, Vietnam, and many other countries mingled, sharing stories and comforting each other. Some quietly observed American customs, while others simply offered their silent respect. In their faces, a pure affection that transcended the boundaries of language and culture was palpable, making one's heart swell. After the service, former boarders of different nationalities gathered at a nearby diner, a place Mama Rose sometimes took them for a treat. To remember her, in small groups, they shared stories like, "Mama Rose once told me this advice," or, "I was so lost, and she helped me with." Some shed tears, while others reminisced with smiles. All those emotions mingled, like watching the final, poignant act of a life well lived. What will happen to the house now? Many wondered. Mama Rose's son, though having his own life, intended to keep the house in the family, perhaps renting it out differently. But he acknowledged that continuing the boarding house in the same way without his mother's unique touch would be impossible. He promised to keep her spirit of welcome alive in whatever way he could. However, the fact that Mama Rose herself was no longer there saddened everyone. No matter how the house was managed, the absence of her warm, personal embrace was a huge void. Nevertheless, people held on to the conviction in a corner of their hearts that Mama Rose lives on forever in our hearts. Before returning to Washington, D.C., Kwasi made one last visit to the old Victorian house. There, with her son's permission, he looked through photo albums Mama Rose had kept. They were filled with pictures taken with students from various countries over decades. And her handwritten notes in the margins caught his eye. This young lady from France. Very shy at first, but a wonderful artist. Kwasi, always studying, but with such a kind smile. He loved my apple pie. A picnic by the Charles River with the German students. Such a lovely day, and so on. It was like a treasure chest imbued with Mama Rose's loving memories. In one photo, Kwasi saw his own bright smile from when he was 20, unlike the overwhelmed and nervous look on his first day at Logan Airport. This was him smiling, having found peace of mind and a sense of belonging at Mama Rose's place. I've really changed so much since then, he said to himself. And what made all that change possible was the warm, unconditional love bestowed by Mama Rose. A wave of profound gratitude and longing washed over him. Even after that, the spirit of Mama Rose's place lived on in the connections forged there. Students continued to keep in touch, carrying her lessons of kindness with them. Although Mama Rose herself was no longer physically there, her spirit permeated their memories. Listen to, help, and empathize with those who are struggling. Respect different cultures and languages. Warmth that transcends borders exists. This intangible legacy continued to inspire those who had known her. Kwasi also returned to his daily life, still working in diplomatic affairs, fostering connections between the US and Ghana. He would often tell young students or new diplomats, "The greatest lesson I learned during my time in America, especially in Boston, is that human warmth and genuine connection can change everything. Language barriers or cultural misunderstandings, they can all be overcome if there's heart. I received that kindness, and now I want to pass it on." As he said this, his eyes always held the light that Mama Rose had ignited in him. After Mama Rose's memorial, many former boarders strengthened their bonds through an online group, commemorating the Mama Rose spirit. There, they shared updates on their lives and news about volunteer activities or cultural exchange programs happening in various parts of the world. Occasionally, when several found themselves in the same city, they'd hold actual gatherings, memory dinners, where they'd try to recreate some of the simple, comforting foods Mama Rose used to make. As they ate, everyone brought out different memories, laughing and crying. Thus, Mama Rose's name became a symbol. The heart that reaches out across borders. The inclusiveness that accepts strangers as family. The deep comfort found in a cozy home. These things circulated among people, passed down like cherished legends. Perhaps that kind grandmother showed, through her life, an essential message that humanity needs. Oh, I don't do anything grand, dears. Just offer a smile, a listening ear, and a warm meal. Her oft-repeated words from her lifetime remained memorable. This story began in 2005 when a young Ghanaian man, new to America, arrived at a charming old boarding house in a Cambridge neighborhood. At first, it was just a house that provided him with a place to sleep and eat. But gradually it became much more. Numerous international exchange students laughed over shared meals, shared their worries late at night, helped each other with English and cultural nuances, and became an unconventional, supportive family. And at the center of it all was an American grandmother with a big heart and open arms. The students called her Mama Rose, and true to the nickname, she generously cared for and loved them all. 20 years later, Kwasi, while working at the Ghanaian embassy in D.C., returned to Boston to be with Mama Rose in her final days. In the intervening years, time had taken its toll on her health, and eventually, she breathed her last. But in the place she left behind, and in the hearts of those she touched, traces of unwavering love remained. The nationalities and backgrounds of the people gathered at her memorial were different, But the tears born of sorrow and respect shone with the same light. They said in unison, "This woman was our American Mama. Our forever Mama Rose." Mama Rose's life, concluded in this way, was ordinary in its daily rhythms, yet anything but in its impact. For some, it was a force that changed their entire outlook on a new country. For others, it was the hope and comfort that allowed them to stand up again when they felt lonely or overwhelmed. That strength and hope did not come from extraordinary wealth, status, or organizational support, but from the genuine warmth shown by one human being. Even if accents differed, even if customs were unfamiliar, when people meet with open hearts, they can truly connect. Through Mama Rose's place, countless international students came to remember America in a new, deeply personal way. They didn't just experience the academics or the tourist sites, but the warm, human affection of a true American home firsthand. And it left a huge mark on their lives. Kwasi is a living testament to this fact. The same young man who cried all night in a strange land upon hearing of his biological grandmother's passing in Ghana found solace and, 20 years later, returned to America to offer comfort and watch over another beloved grandmother figure in her final moments. Ironically, he experienced profound loss related to two grandmothers, but he also shared the commonality of having received deep, nurturing love from both. So, for us encountering this story at this moment, a question remains: how am I relating to my neighbors, to strangers, or to people from completely different cultures or backgrounds? In an age where the world can feel increasingly divided and distances between people seem to be growing, the truth shown by Mama Rose still lives on. Crying together, laughing together, and trying to understand each other across all kinds of borders, that is what can make any place feel like home. In fact, one of Kwasi's current passions, alongside his diplomatic work, is to support and encourage international student exchange programs. He often says at orientations for students going abroad, cultural differences are real. But rather than fearing them, approach them with curiosity and a willingness to learn and enjoy. I, too, learned about that warmth firsthand when I was a student in America, and it made me who I am today. The kindness I received from my American Mama, I want to help ensure more students can experience that kind of welcome. And perhaps, someone reading or hearing this story could become a new Mama Rose or Papa Joe. The walls that divide us by nationality, race, or generation are often built by our own fears and misconceptions. They are not absolute. A small act of kindness, a simple word of comfort, can become an unforgettable gift of love for someone, whether in America, Ghana, Europe, or anywhere else. If that heart is present, a simple house can transform into a cherished home. In 2005, a young Ghanaian man who came to America found a welcoming boarding house in a Cambridge neighborhood. The American grandmother he met there greeted him with a warmth that transcended cultural differences. There, Kwasi shared meals with new friends, sometimes shed tears over sad news, and found comfort in gentle lullabies and quiet talks with his beloved Mama Rose. And that love continued for 20 years, remaining a deep bond that saw them through to Mama Rose's final moments. With Kwasi by her side, the sight of people from all over the world gathered at her memorial, sharing tears and memories, proved that the love Mama Rose had bestowed throughout her life had broken down walls of nationality and background. We call that grandmother Mama Rose. Though she has now passed from this world, the spirit she left behind still lives and breathes in the lives of many, helping those in difficulty, extending a hand to those in unfamiliar environments, crying and laughing together. Isn't this the most basic and important value that our often impersonal modern society should not forget? Finally, like that young man Kwasi, we too may encounter opportunities in life to extend a hand to someone. When that happens, let's not be afraid, but offer a warm heart. Just as Mama Rose showed, that small act can sometimes change someone's life and be the first step in making the world a little more humane and connected. In that way, the door of Mama Rose's place, and places like it, will continue to be open somewhere, in spirit, even now, and the strangers who enter through that door become not just passing guests, but In a way, family who will one day carry that warmth forward. Neither borders, nor language, nor culture can ultimately block that kind of love. The conclusion of this long story is one. Among the gifts one person can give another, the greatest and most precious are ultimately heart, understanding, and comfort, and its beginning might be a small, gentle voice asking, "Welcome, dear. Have you eaten? Come on in."